Nightmares, calm or crisis, whatever the future holds, there are some amazing things to come.
In tonight's crucial episode of Things to Come...
What's the secret of life concealed in this king-size greenhouse?
Is it a boat? Is it a plane? Or is it a flying fish slice?
How will surgeons be able to control our behaviour in the future?
Will the world really end as those weird Yank sub-geniuses predict? Bonjour, my little yachters, and welcome to this sleepy French village on the shores of the Mediterranean, where we find an unusual sailboat. Yes, it's completely different from your traditional craft because this one doesn't have any sails. Pourquoi? I hear you shout. Well, chill out, kids. I'll fill you in. You see, Un Chien Andalou here is waiting for the launch of this huge wet projectile. I'm only kidding. It's actually only 10 metres long and 60 centimetres wide, and you won't find any wood or plastic on this futuristic looking yacht. It's all carbon, aluminium and cycle, whatever that is. But the long and short of it is, it only weighs 200 kilos, which is less than I do after someone's bought me a free dinner. But why bother? Isn't an ordinary sail good enough? Well, not for these burly French sailors, because their skipper Lionel Péon is interested in speed.
Nous souhaiterions obtenir une vitesse égale à 2 à 4 fois la vitesse du vent et dépasser les 100 km/h à la voile.
Now that would be the world record. And this prototype hasn't quite reached such tremendous speeds as that, but it's still early days and it's already achieved nearly 40 kilometers an hour. Look, it's as simple as this. A normal sail flexes and loses energy. But this boat's solid wing works just like an aeroplane's, in that the passing air provides the lift that drives the boat forward. All this blurk's doing is telling it where to go. The rest is done by computer. The principle is to maximise the use of the sail in the air, and that's just far too complicated for one person to do. Thus, the computer is equipped with 30 different instruments which adjust the steering sail and the rudder foils and that at an incredible rate of 1,000 times a second. It looks like this could be the shape of yachts to come, and not just yachts. This technology can be used for any type of boat. In fact, the Japanese are already testing the principle on motorised tankers to save fuel. So if I were you, my little yachters, I'd start saving right now so that in the future you too can sail into the sunset. That's if we still got a sun to set, mind. Come on, wow. What's the matter with these people? Can't talk to anybody these days. I mean, doesn't anybody speak Scouse? Actually, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm talking in a dead language. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about this. Why should I be worried? I mean, language is evolving all the time anyway. I shouldn't be embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed about anything. I mean, look at this guy. Excuse me, love, you don't fancy coming down the pub for a few pints, do you? That bloke will never get anywhere like that. He's living in the past. But you see, there was a time when English was all thee and thine and all that, but it's changed, and it will always change. I mean, in the TV age, language has become so fast that literature, just to compete, has had to cut stories down to just one word. But the important thing is how will we communicate in the future? Well, obviously we can only speculate about that, but what I can assure you is language will become brief and concise. In fact, some people have even told me that you won't have to finish your sentences because everyone will know what you're gonna...
Deep in the Arizona desert, scientists are creating one of the most unusual experiments ever to find out whether we can create an environment that would let us live in space. For 2 years, 8 scientists are going to live sealed inside a man-made ecosystem, a totally self-sufficient environment. It's called Biosphere 2 because Earth is Biosphere 1, and inside it's a microcosm of the world. There's a series of miniature environments, a rainforest, grassland, an ocean and a desert. It's hoped that they'll regulate each other just as they do in our world to produce enough food, water and oxygen for people to survive.
Reproduce a biosphere in space. We clearly cannot take a 2.5 acre glass structure complete with plants and lift it into space. But we can take what we need to live and what the plants need to live and take even a single cell, take the germplasm and reproduce a biosphere in space.
We have a water system that's supporting fish, supporting plant life. The fish feed off the roots of the plants, the water fern, the azolla which grows here. There are microbial systems. For example, the churning drum has microbes that break down the ammonia and take out some of what otherwise would prove to be a problem. It goes through a gravel bed which further deposits material. The water hyacinth, ordinarily a problem in the tropical ecology, feeds off of it, provides some food for the fish and also material for composting.
What are the insects going to be doing in Biosphere 2? Well, they're going to be doing very much what they do in Biosphere 1. What I'm looking at in particular is, number one, the pollinators that I need to pollinate all the plants within the biosphere itself. Also, the insects who are playing a vital role in the nutrient recyclings in the systems within Biosphere 2. And so I'm looking at the animals, the detritivores, the animals that break down the organic matter, the ants which mine the nutrients deep from within the soils, things like that. I'm also looking at animals that will play an important role in the food web, the food chain of the biosphere. For instance, we're having bats in there, and primates, hummingbirds, there'll be some snakes and frogs. All these animals are going to be needing a certain amount of insects to either supplement or to be their entire diet within the biosphere. So I'm looking at those kind of insects too.
One of the things that gives me great motivations in this project is I'm very strongly of the feeling that our destiny is in space, both on this planet and as a species, to take our biospheric life with us into the solar system and in due course further out into the galaxy.
The Inuit, or the Eskimo as they were once known. Just one more horrific example of a unique tribal culture being swallowed up by the greed of Western civilization. But will it ever stop in the future? The sad thing is that the world was once packed with a variety of cultures, but after we've finished steamrolling our way over them, there'll only be one tribe left on Earth. Us. Usually, communities evolve organically over centuries. However, for the Inuit, the speed of change is frighteningly dramatic. In just a few short years, they've leapt from the ancient dog sleigh to the motorised snow scooter. And it's this speed of change that's destroying their own unique culture. For instance, the Inuit hunt, once the centre of their communal life, has now become a visit to the local supermarket as they become ever more westernised. Our image of the Inuit in their primitive state still continues, but the reality is different. Indeed, the Inuit now have all the latest modern technology, including video surveillance, but by accepting this, they've also embraced other modern Western problems. And even more poignant, no one seems to care about the death of a dog, an animal that these people could once never have lived without. What has become of the Inuit filmed 70 years ago? This. In 1920, Robert Flaherty filmed the first documentary in the history of the cinema, Nanook, and from it we can see how even their hunting methods have changed. From the crude harpoon to a semi-automatic rifle. But today it's not even hunting seals for survival in this hostile land. It's become a sport for men to overcome boredom. However, many of the ancient rituals that accompany a kill still survive, just as they have done over the centuries. The whole community gathers together as one big happy family to dissect and eat the raw meat of the seal. Today, less than 4% of the world's population still live in tribal societies. But for how long can these tribes survive in a world determined by the ever-expanding tentacles of modern technology? How long will they even be able to write and speak in their own languages when the demands of the 20th century call for courses in computing to communicate?
Yeah.
And what is the future for the Wayana Indians? The National Geographic article that this young Inuit is reading echoes his questions about his own tribe. Thousands of kilometres away, between Brazil and Suriname, in the forests of French Guiana, the Wayanas are beginning to experience the changes the Inuit have already been through. These black and white images witness this. Take this young Indian hiding behind the witch doctor. 15 years later, he's become this elegant young man with the bull worker, whose new CNA clothes look completely out of place in the jungle. This tribe now also struggles to cope with the complexities of an alien language, when they could be learning to play footy and earning fortunes playing in the World Cup, where they could easily beat England. But then again, just about anyone can beat England, even this aging witch doctor, all on his own. But seriously, he seems resigned before the spectacle of his people, fascinated by the images of Nanook, broadcasting from the only TV set that the villagers possess. Across the continents, we are watching the agony of the last tribes and the irredeemable disappearance of unique cultures. Earth has become, little by little, the global village that the 60s media guru Marshall McLuhan spoke of in his book, The Medium is the Message. On the one hand, this is a good thing, because these tribes are learning about different people elsewhere in the world. But on the other, what comes with this is the TV, the pinnacle of all the madness that comes with the Western way of life. But for me, the danger is that we'll have one big, boring monoculture. We'll all become the same.
Nothing lasts forever. In this crazy, frenetic world of ours, even those that we hold nearest and dearest to us have to go eventually. Like the toupee, for example. Once baldness is cured, out will go the secret saviour of balding office managers everywhere. Because this is a time capsule with a difference. We're not putting in symbols of our time. What we're doing is burying, for the benefit of future ages, things which right now are on their way out. Like toothpaste, for example, squeezed out by biotech bacteria which will live in our mouths and clean our teeth constantly, so no more red stripes or arguments about who left the top off. And checkbook, please. Adieu to this quiet, unassuming little object that's been around for centuries, killed off by that 20th century upstart, the cash card. And once we've got fax machines, who needs letters? No doubt some romantic diehards will carry on lovingly scripting their billet-doux and sealing them with a kiss, but an awful lot of us won't. And finally, a map of Britain circa 1990, just to remind people in the future that once the island of Blackpool was part of the mainland, and you couldn't always lie on the beach in Doncaster-on-Sea.
Imperial Rapide Travel Pack. It's never been so easy to get clean away.
For delicious sweet and sour pork or chicken, simply add new Uncle Ben's sweet and sour sauce. Just look at those really crispy vegetables. You'll enjoy an exciting, mouth-watering meal in minutes. New Uncle Ben Stir Fry. Perfect results every time.
Now dance the 12-inch mixes.
You can't touch this.
2 hours of the hottest hits around.
Break it down.
Stevie B, MC Hammer, Soul to Soul, Bobby Brown. Chad Jackson, 20 extended mixes.
To the drum, I get wicked.
Now dance.
Now that's what's happening.
The next time you're laying breakfast, remember the outspanned grapefruit.
About 30 years ago, doctors started planting electrodes in the human brain to treat conditions like cerebral palsy and chronic pain. It's high-precision surgery, but it's become almost routine. What you're about to see isn't terribly pleasant, but think of it as a trip to the dentist, because in the future we'll be using electrodes and other implants for all kinds of treatments, and it'll probably be just like having a filling or a tooth capped. This woman is 80 years old, and she hasn't had any feeling in her limbs for years. She's going to have some electrodes put in her brain to enable her to recover some sensation.
Okay, close your eyes now.
Now you're going to feel a little sting on the top of her.
Squeeze my finger. Squeeze my finger.
First they give her a pain-killing injection, just a local one because she has to be fully conscious all the way through. Then the doctor draws lines on her skull to map out where he's going to drill and make the incisions. But don't worry, we're not going to show you the most gruesome bits.
Anything hurts now, honey, let us know right away, okay?
Does this hurt at all?
Nope.
It's been touching you, right?
I don't even know where you are.
Okay. You hear a little scraping noise. It shouldn't be painful. Mastoid.
Everything okay, honey?
So we're going to drill the hole now. So your daughter flew back yesterday or today?
No, she's here.
Oh, she's here. Oh, okay.
You see, if we know which bits of the brain control which functions, we'll be able to treat them so that the brain works correctly, or at least machines can compensate for it.
Now, all right. Number 8 glove, please.
Rather than just treating disorders like epilepsy or Parkinson's disease, we might be able to control or even cure them.
Holder coming around, hold your head frame. Can you lower your shoulder a little bit?
And in the very long term, we might be able to prevent ailments like dyslexia, Alzheimer's, or even autism. Right, now she's ready for her X-ray. And while the patient lies back and relaxes for a while, the doctors are going to plan their approach. They've taken X-rays of all sides of the skull, and they've got out their geometry sets to map with pinpoint accuracy where they're going to plant the electrodes.
Down from the anterior commissure line and posterior commissure line, connecting, coordinate.
While they're getting on with that, here's another thought. It's been suggested that this kind of stereotactic surgery could replace taking medicine, at least for those who have long-term medical treatment anyway. We could implant capsules designed to release the treatment at a specific rate, like insulin or hormones or tranquilizers.
Five. Am I hurting you?
Nope, shot through my body though. I'm feeling that. We're overloading this off.
And this is where we run into a grey area, because there's a fine line between using surgery to treat psychological disorders and using it to control our behaviour. And given that we already control patients with controversial drugs like Largactol, there's no reason why it shouldn't be done with implants. Now we're getting to the main part of the operation where they're putting in the electrodes. The patient needs to be fully conscious so she can tell the doctor when he's stimulating the right parts of her brain, and when, for the first time in 10 years, she's able to feel sensation in her limbs.
Did you feel something?
Yeah.
Where do you feel it?
Just, oh, through my body.
Which side?
Like,
Left side? Right
see?
side?
No, I felt it from my face down.
550.
Okay. Go down to the leg at all?
It's going, yes, definitely down my left leg.
Down to the left leg to the toes? Did it go away?
Yes.
All
My
right.
left arm, too.
Left arm too. Just a minute. Which was stronger? Don't move your head, please, okay?
Okay.
You're not accustomed to do that.
Okay.
This is very critical if you don't.
Okay, I'm shaking.
The left side, right? Yes?
And finally, here's a woman who's already wired up. She's got electrodes in her head, wires in her neck, and an electronic receiver in her chest. Although in her case, it's actually to relieve pain.
Sharon, I'm going to increase the amplitude. You let me know when you begin to feel something, okay?
It's pretty noisy up there.
In the future, this kind of treatment will lead to serious moral dilemmas. Controlling disease and disability obviously raises no problems, but there is an issue when it comes to controlling our behaviour. It'll start off being harmless enough, with tranquilizer implants for depression or anxiety, but what about clamping down on troublesome prisoners, or even quelling unruly adolescents? Whatever happens, there may be lots of androids walking the streets in the future with their heads full of electronics. And who'll be able to tell where man ends and machine begins?
Welcome to the Church of the Subgenius. Yes, kids, it's that wacky yank religion time again, as Things to Come desperately tries to understand what these weirdos are talking about. This week, the church is preparing for the end of the world, or X-Day, as they call it.
And on that day, my friend, your soul will be laid bare to the eye of the great stark fist of removal that hovers above you all the time. You'll be necking to Wotan, and it will know then whether you really believed in Bob Dobbs or not.
Yes, each individual is his own church, each house a kingdom, each yard a nuclear territory to be defended to the point of total war. Subgeniuses are not joiners. They generally hate one another almost as much as they hate everybody else.
The point is, we want to bring Bob to these people. We can't depend on them to come to Bob. You know, we've tried that, and it's been moderately successful, but it's time to move into the third stage.
Love and hate, nuclear gardens. I think if these people really want Bob to reach the masses, they better decide what they're talking about before X-Day.
Set budding more and still more later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days can never
People never understand that stuff. You want to talk to, the way the young people talk to it.
That's the way the world's going to be. That's the future, and that's what's going to happen. You know, we're lucky to be riding this juggernaut because at least we're not in front of it.
It's going to be up to you. It's going to be up to you. What are you going to let happen to this planet? What are you going to do about it?
There will be wheeling and jeering and gnashing of mandibles on the last day. Sackcloth, ashes, laundry bags full of old dry cleaning, and in general jubilation in the streets. But it won't come without a considerable strain on the wallet and on the soul and on the capacity for belief to take that leap of faith in the dark which will propel us all into the unknowable chaos of the future.
Oh, hell ain't somewhere down below, my friend. Hell is life here on earth without that man Bob. And when the demons try to tell you that, you think you're hearing a satire. Oh, one day you'll find yourself up to your neck in false drugs, false sex, false jobs, false money. And you'll say, but where's Bob? Where's Bob? You mean there really is a conspiracy? You mean there really was a Bob? You mean I could have had slack and I blew it?
You said it, Buster. Slack's the word for this crazy conspiracy, and I've only got one thing to say to their demons, and that's...
What if we could communicate without words?
What if UFOs really are the harbingers of doom?
What if we could fly through space by the light of the sun?
The answers are in next week's final and increasingly weird episode of Things to Come.